Welcome everyone. Emergency response mechanism. Now, we are talking about emergency responses in terms of accidents. We would love to avoid those emergency mechanism in the first place as far as accidents are concerned. If possible, we would love to avoid an accident-free area, accident-free day, week, year, and so on and so forth. But in case any untoward accidents happen, what are the mechanisms that needs to be taken place? We will discuss around it, and even before an accident occurs, what things can be taken so that probably we avert an accident forever. Time. So let us have an emergency plan. You look at this pic, you have areas of evacuating the building, probably in terms of fire, probably in terms of emergency, probably in terms of earthquake. People should be aware where what are the exit plan thereby. So yes, anticipate what can go wrong and plan for those situations, and that is what emergency response mechanism is all about. It you are always ready for an untoward accidents. We should have drills for emergency situations in there. Emergency action plan, the following minimum elements should be included. Alarm system, definitely yes. Alarm system helps you to alert everyone in the building, in the premises, all the workers, no matter in what position they are working around, for no matter where they have been located around, no matter how remote they are been located around. So alarm system will enable them that something fishy is going around. Emergency escape procedures and the route assignment should be glowing in the dark, even in the cases of a dark, so it should be made up of radium materials as such. Procedures for employees to remain to operate critical plant operations before evacuation, if I may say so. Procedures to account for all employees as on when on possible, all employees to work around it. Rescue and medical duties for those employees who are to perform them. Now, herein, if there are untoward accident that happens wherein people are getting already fixed up, so probably we need to check with the medical procedures, and there should be the paramedics available at a short notice. The preferred means of reporting fires and other emergency, everybody should be aware of it. What is the preferred mode? Is it a telephone call? Is it any things that comes around it through a social media messages? it, the number should be applicable, available at everybody's disposal. Names, job titles, as in who should be contacted, who are the person who is responsible for further information, explanation of the plan thereby. So record keeping and updating as such. We need to record each injuries, each illness as per as OSHA is concerned. OSHA is occupational safety and hazard analysis. Now, what are we are talking about OSHA 300? That should be logged in within 6 days. Approximately 6 days is every accident, every injury, any illnesses. You should always log in, make it recordable about the occupational fatalities if there are some untoward eventualities happens around it. The number of work day that has been lost or the work hours that has been lost result in light duty or termination, perhaps require medical treatment other than the first aid, or involve loss of consciousness or restriction of work or motion as the case might be. This is what we are entangled with. Yeah, record keeping, if I may say so, what needs to be done. First aid, one time treatment that is expected and probably is to be given by a person who is basically trained enough to administer the first aid supplies. And the first aid kit has to be readily accessible for every individual, for every office goers, every employees, every workers that are working in the premises. Any follow up visits for the purpose of observation for the extent of the treatment should always be done it at the nearest medical center that comes around it. The new OSHA record keeping rules list the specific first aid treatment. Now, the OSHA requirement says, what have you done? What has happened? What have you done? And what are the steps in places? Everything need to be notified. Any accident that involves an injury, an illness, an equipment, or a property damage, this is what we should always take into consideration. Accident that involves injuries, illness, equipment, or property damages thereby. Any near misses. A near miss is an event that strictly by chance does not result in actuals or observable injuries, illness or death or property damage. Examples: slip, trips and falls, compressed gas cylinder falling, overexposures to a chemical as the case might be. This is what we are looking forward to. Please avoid near misses. Near misses are almost to be treated as an accident. Now, anything that was unfortunately avoided but was almost supposed to have been happened around here needs to be taken into consideration. Any hazards such as exposed electrical wires, damaged PPE, personal protective equipment, if I may say so, improper material storages, improper chemical usage. How do we go across with it? The horseplay, the damaged equipment, the missing machine guard, and things like that. And this is what we're looking forward to it. Now, let us understand hazard analysis. Now, this is before the emergency response mechanism has to be put in places, and this is why the emergency mechanism has to be put in place, because if we can do it, if we can prevent any accident from happening, that's the best, or should I ideal situation all the way. Orderly process used to determine if a hazard exists in a workplace. Uncover hazard overlooked in the design. Locate hazard development in process. Determine the essential steps of a job. Identify hazard that results from the performance of the actual job, if I may say so. So we need to understand the hazard analysis thereby. Now we need to understand what might happen. In fact, at the very beginning of this presentation, I said we should be prepared for what might happen, any unwanted situation, and what should be our reactions towards it. So locate the hazard development in process, determine the essential steps. Now we will be talking about the 5 step that goes around it, and with those 5 steps winding up this particular presentations altogether. Step number one, what is it? First and foremost thing, you see the pic of a lightning that has been wonderfully captured and been in display for you, is to identify the hazard condition with potential to cause personal injuries, death, and property damage. And lightning is one of those things. We are never aware of it, that the place where you are accessing this particular video might be stuck with the lightning in next 3 months time, 30 years time, or might not, but there is a chance that it might stuck at any point of time. So this is what you need to understand. Hazards can happen, and you need to understand certain hazards which might be beyond your calculation, but eventually can you prepare for it? Yes, we can have a lightning arrestor in your building and probably be taken care of. So hazard identification is all about reviewing records, what has happened, talk to personal about people who are finding difficulties in their job, what are the incumbents saying around it. Uh, re- Read their lips, absolutely yes. Accident investigation, in case if there is an accident, what went wrong. Follow process flow is what we say, write a job safety analysis, use inspection checklist. This is a must requirement for everyone about it. The inspection checklist will tell it to you what are the fine points that needs your attention. So yes, hazard will come across with it. Let us move to the step number two. Step number two is all about assessing hazards, and assessing the potential hazardous material, potential hazardous situation per se. Probability is how likely is the hazard going to happen. Did I say the place where you are accessing this video might stuck with the lightning in next 3 months, 3 minutes, 30 years, or not even in 30 years? So what is the probability? You need to also check with it. The probability is likely, it might not at all likely. Now, based on the probability, will you take the steps? Obviously, if it is most likely, you have to take the step. If it is not likely, and then you might weigh in the pros and cons, and you will see arranging for a lightning arrest in your building might outweigh the cost about it, and so probably you might always go ahead with it. Severity, in case if it is happened, what will be the magnitude altogether? Will it happen result in death? Will it result in serious injuries? Will it result in damage to property? So severity will also be a determining factors as to why you are hazard and how do you go about by mitigating it. So level of risk awareness is what we will be talking about it. At times we are absolutely unaware. Did I say give you a photographs of a lightning? Most of us, when we're talking about this particular video, nobody has thought one of those hazards would be lightning also. Nevertheless, this is a hard fact, and that is the reason why I've put in the lightning pick for you. Post awareness, realize the risk after task completion. This is what happens altogether. So you are either unaware, so you go ahead with the work, but then you encounter something difficulties, an accident, probably that is post awareness. Actually, after the risk has already happened altogether. Now, this what we are looking for, the ideal ways, engaged awareness. You should be aware of the risk when you are performing a job and correct the situation as per the demand, as per the requirement of the day. You need to correct it out. So level of risk awareness is very important, be it unaware, post awareness. Unaware, you cannot do anything, you are not aware of it. This is simply plain ignorance. Post awareness, things might have already happened, and what has to happen has already happened altogether, so you cannot have any rectifiable method. But engaged awareness is something what we would love to go around it. And then there's something called proactive awareness, wherein you factor in all possible kind of misfortune that can happen. So foresee hazards and begin tasks only when safe is proceeded. So who is at risk? This is one of the major concern that comes around it. Who's at risk? Is it the workers? Is it the visitors? Is it the invited customers, emergency services, or the delivery drivers? So look at it, delivery drivers, the emergency services, they were nowhere related to it, nowhere related to the organization wherein the accident has happened. But believe me or not, everybody is a risk to it. Even your customers who are not a regular people who work within the premises, but that happens. Then there are people who are called uninvited in terms of trespassers and burglars and things like that. So everyone is at risk, workers, visitors, both invited and uninvited. There are contractors, janitorial and maintenance services, as the case might be, and others in terms of members of public, the general public, if I may say so, the passerby, the neighbors. So if there is some misfortune that happens around it, it might be as a blast, probably. But in case if you want to think blast is only going to happen in the movies, then probably a leakage of chemical without any sound. It happens and it spoils your neighborhood. The general public get a whiff of it, and probably they also have suffered from. So let us move to the step number three of making the risk decision as to what is to be done and how it is to be done. So what is make risk decision is, can we reduce or mitigate the risk, and if it is possible, how does the risk been outweighing with the benefits as such. So if the benefit outweighs the risk, please go ahead with it. Absolutely go ahead with it. In fact, I would recommend, why keep an iota of doubt about a risk? If possible, take all means per se. Step number four is implement control. We are talking about controlling in terms of substitution of the chemicals. Probably if it is hazardous, probably can we do it with another something which might not be hazardous or detrimental to the human health or the health of the flora and the fauna. We can have engineering controls. Now, when I say engineering controls, it might be done on in a remote fashion, one, or it can be done with the help of a robot. A robotic arm can go around it instead of man putting his own hand into a machine for cutting off anything onto the lathe machine. Can the machine precisely do it on its own? You eliminates even the chances of the human error out here. Administrative control is something definitely needs to be put into places, as in the check-in balances, what is to be done and how it is to be done. Even for a 10-second jobs of pushing a plug or pushing a things, you need to be protective, wearing the personal protective equipment, which might take approximately anything around 10-12 minutes for you to wear around it for a 10-second jobs. But do ensure that the administrative control will ensure that you are wearing a personal protective equipment. Now these are your implementing control procedures altogether. Remember, we are talking about accident mechanism. How do we altogether? So hazard controls, there are three things. We can make a control right at the point of sources, or at the in the midway on the way to the transportation area, or at the end consumer level, or the end result who is supposed to receive it. So yes, the hazard control has to be taken in every part, right at the time of production, at the source material, at the point of transportations on the pathway, or at the time of consumption, or probably the receiver who actually on the way around it. So let me give it to you. What is administrative? Just look at here in the administrative, it has been plainly, blankly written in bold fashion. What is an hazardous, that you are entering a hazardous area. Please take proper precaution. It is been impaneled onto you. It is on your face. You just cannot avoid it. It's been absolutely stated danger, absolutely stated precautions, absolutely stated you work at your own risk, and that needs to be taken care of. Look at engineering. You see a complete safety procedure has been taken, wherein we are basically pumping the wastages from one of those sewage materials, and wherein the gentleman is doing it from a remote basis, and we are not encouraging any human beings to remove the sewage materials from the pipes underground that comes around it. Probably why? Because a lot of carbon monoxide get concentrated and people might get suffocated, hallucinated, or even death per se. Then we have the PPE, as I have been giving you a reflected about it, protective equipments, clothing. You see the gentleman is wearing a red hat altogether. If not a red hat, it might be called a helmet. There is something for eye protection, for his nasal protection, the ear, the filters are in places, everything has been taken into consideration. He is wearing from head to toe, everything has been covered around here. And this is what hazard control is all about, it be it administrative, be it engineering, be it protective equipment and clothing, as the case might be. They can work in together to eliminate probably 99% of the chance of having any accidents. Did I say about the sewage materials being removed? Hazard elimination, add-on safety design, which might be active, which might be passive, and follow the user manual instructions religiously, if I may say so. Ventilation is all about design, is all about layout. Safety devices. Now, this can only be done at the right at the beginning of the place in terms of during the engineering processes. Let us come to the administrative factor about the safety rules that can be pasted around it, disciplinary policies, accountability, responsibility. People need to be fixed about who is accountable and what, if anything goes wrong, who should be penalized. Preventive maintenance is always better than uh, reactive maintenance as such. So we need to go around with the training part. It proficiency, knowledge demonstration, as the case might be. Yes, people should be aware of what are they working around it. People should be aware of how to work around it, what are the materials they are handling, and how should they go about. That is what is very important as administrative. We come to the very last slide when I said we will be talking about the five steps, and this is the fifth step altogether. Take precaution. Look, the gentleman is looking somewhere else and walking somewhere else, almost onto the manhole. Despite the fact that there is a danger sign of caution being written around here, and this is what is he doing? He is not being supervised, and as a result, accidents are going to happen. Ensure risk control measures are implemented. Absolutely. Instead of writing the cautionary signs out there, can we cover it up, or can we block the passage altogether to us from the manhole? So that's one way to go around it. So we need to track the progress. We need to keep up with supervisions around it and give a proper feedback as on when on basis. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. I am sure that most of you have understood what are the mechanism that needs to be kept in place to avoid accident for time being. Thank you very much for watching this video.